Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of the Diversified Semantic Layer, the Unstructured Geek Analytics. And with me today, I think he's probably honored to feel that he's part of the Geek Squad, is Kurt Bilafer from Singapore. Kurt, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, and absolutely, I'm very pleased to be in the Geek Squad. But to be very clear, I have only geek aspirations. I wish I could cut code or even talk technical, but it's great to be here.
So on the geek aspect, I'm still horrified when we was in Singapore. I think was it either this year or last year when you said you wanted to get your hands dirty in ABAP code.
Yes.
How's that going?
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. I'd be happy if I could figure out how to use Ruby on Rails or anything. I have a secret desire to just write an iPad app just so I can say that I have done it.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the gateway stuff for a while, and folks kind of talked to me. Maybe that wasn't the best thing for me to get started with, and so I got to find something because I think there's just so much opportunity to connect all these different aspects together, right? I'd love to be able to do that.
So I mean, you are I am rocking the Data Geek T-shirt today, and I know you also are a big fan of sort of bringing in all different sites of data. So let's get to this. So, a standard set of questions that we really run through to just try to get to understand people in the community and how they fit in. And Kurt's one of probably the primary contributor in the Asia Pacific region on the social side of trying to impart knowledge and connect people. So it's been great working with you over the past 2 years. But firstly, where do you hail from originally? Obviously, you're not from Singapore. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So originally, I'm from Connecticut, east coast of the United States. But almost 20 years ago, I moved out to California, which is what I consider home now, or my home away from home. So just outside of Palo Alto, and then moved to Singapore 2 years ago. So trying to make sure that I truly am a global citizen and understand what's going on outside of the United States, because Silicon Valley is its own little bubble, its own little controlled community. So it's been a wild experience being in the region, right? Asia Pacific, Japan is an important and strategic region for SAP. It's 55% of the world's population, about 30% of the world's GDP, growing at China alone is growing at 7-8%, and it's already a big economy. But I think what's most interesting is all of the things that have happened in Europe and in North America with ERP and rollouts and deployments of technology. Out here, they get to skip all that, right? They don't necessarily have a lot of legacy infrastructure, so they get to kind of look at what's going on in the world now and quickly jump on that. Maybe with the exception of cloud, just due to government regulations and lots of countries. It isn't all one big country or union of conglomerate of countries. So cloud has been a little bit longer to roll out, but I think if you look at mobility, it's just huge. So I've bounced around a lot. And really thankful to have the opportunity to be in APJ and understand what that is. And hopefully wherever it is I go next, and there always is it going somewhere next, right, that I get to take what I've learned and apply it there.
The question is, do you have any pages left in your passport?
I have two passports just for that reason. So, and they're both American and they're both legitimate, but no, the first passport ran out of pages, and so thankfully I was able to order a second passport and then send my original one back to get 25 or 26 additional pages added. So, even my kids just got new passports about 6 months ago and already have 13 stamps in them from different countries. So they're making the rounds as well.
Awesome. And your current employer?
I'm currently employed by SAP. And I'm responsible for analytics, the analytics business, BI, business intelligence, enterprise performance management, governance, risk and compliance, and our finance line of business solutions.
Sure. And you've had this is your second tenure with SAP, right?
Yes. I'm a repeat, a boomerang, whatever you want to describe it as. But yeah, I first came into SAP in 2007. So I was part of an acquisition, one of SAP's early acquisitions in the analytics space, and that was an amazing experience. As part of the leadership team for that organization, I had the opportunity to basically be committed to be here for 18 months, and I did my 18 months and I left. I really struggled with the change, going from a small entrepreneurial company to SAP, but I went away for 14 months, and leadership changes happened, and gentlemen like Sanjay Poonen and Steve Lucas and Doug Merritt and others were really instrumental in me coming back into the company. All the way up to Rob and Bill and Jim as well, that realized that all these acquisitions we made weren't just about selling back into our existing customers, or what used to be called tuck-in strategies, that they could actually help us attract and retain new customers, new logos. And so the ability to go out and really sell these different solutions, which is basically the analytics portfolio, has just been great. And I think if you look at all the recent acquisitions, we've spent $20 billion in the last 7 years on acquisitions, and that's B with a billion, and that's not Indian rupee, that's U.S. dollars, right? So it's real big money, and I think
trillions of rands, basically.
That's right. There you go. So I think that part of it's been really exciting. So I'm back, and I just cleared 4 years back. Early, I guess in the middle of November was my 4-year anniversary.
Wow. Okay.
And I've just seen a lot of change, which is good.
It is. Yeah, I was actually had a call with a customer early on today, and they said they're not very technically adept. And I said, well, maybe that's a good thing, because if you see how quickly things are moving, and obviously SP7 for HANA came out yesterday, and all the enhancements. Being a techie geek these days is hard work, because you got to keep up, and it's just
right.
Even the technology within itself, it's evolving so quickly each iteration that you take your eye off the ball, and you'll be behind the curve quickly.
Well, I agree. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have in this space, and it's not limited to SAP, right? I mean, we talk a lot about innovation, whether it's cloud or it's in memory or it's analytics or mobile or any of these sort of things. Even the innovations we're doing on the app side. If you're not in it every day as a customer, it's hard to keep pace with it. And unfortunately, most of the people that follow SAP closely are on the technology side, right? The IT and the CIO and those sort of folks. To the business people, I can only imagine they look at SAP and they know it was an ERP company, and they have no idea what it is we're doing now. And I think that's really the opportunity. That's why I'm such a big fan of the ecosystem and the community, is because I think we need people telling stories about what it is they're doing with the technology, not necessarily the technology, but telling those stories and the business value and the impact, because that's what's going to help customers understand how do they apply and utilize this. Because quite honestly, the business doesn't care whether it's in the cloud or it's on-premise, or they just want the information. They want ease of use, a sexy UI, and they want to just make those decisions and move on, right? And so I think that's the opportunity for us.
Cool. What mobile? We jump around a lot during these conversations. So what mobile device are you rocking today?
I have several. I have a full-size iPad. I have a mini, and I have an iPhone. And I'm talking to you on my laptop because it works better that way. But they're all Apple. They're all Apple devices. Imagine that. A couple of years ago, I was.
Have you got the iPad Air yet, or have you not done that upgrade?
No, haven't done that upgrade yet. It's getting things here in Singapore is a little bit of a challenge. So typically, when I go back to Palo Alto is when I procure and stock up on our Apple devices and bring them back here. But who knows? Santa's coming soon, so you never know what's going to happen.
And that leads into the next question: PC or Mac? And I think I know the answer to that.
Yeah, definitely Mac.
Awesome.
That's recent, Clint. I mean, it used to be that PCs were just the hardware. I mean, same thing with the BlackBerry, right? It was just standard issued hardware, and I think when the whole the bring your own device came into play, the ability to have choice, I never saw myself as a Mac person. But the moment I started using the iPhone and seeing how easy it was to use, I mean, we literally ripped everything out of the house and we just went Macs. Because it's to me, I guess it's that end user experience, right? And it's funny at SAP we talk about internally. We talk about Google Fast and Apple Easy, right? And that we're trying to create those sort of experiences, and that's quite honestly why I went to the Mac, because it is simply just plug it in and stuff works, and I don't have to understand what version or operating system or plugins. It just kind of all works for me. And as you know, I'm a fat-fingered user, right? So that's important to me.
And definitely a fanboy. You're getting a bit gushy here with me.
Yes.
So in terms of the business objects, obviously you see yourself much more from a consumer point of view into the business object space. So how long have you, before SAP, were you involved with the business object stack before the acquisition, or how's your lifestyle in the business objects world been?
Yeah, so no, I mean, so the company that I sold to SAP was called Pilot Software, and prior to selling to SAP, Business Objects had made an offer as well, and that was really the first time that I really dug into what Business Objects did. So that was probably in late 2006.
Okay.
I knew they had lots of different solutions, but I didn't really know much about it. And then prior to the acquisition at SAP, we started utilizing the solutions. Right, the first one we started using was Explorer, originally called Polestar, which is just a horrible name. But we'll all remember that name.
Sounds like a nightclub. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But that was really the first time that I really got a lot of exposure to business objects. And now, it's on all my devices. I use Explorer. I use, certainly use dashboards almost on a daily basis. Have lots of Webby reports and using Lumira, right? So, for me, that's a big part of it. Back in the pilot days, we used to call it eat your own dog food. At SAP, it's appropriately called drink your own champagne. But I think, if you really want to help communicate the value of the solutions, you have to use them. So I definitely try to use as many of the business objects and everything from the analytics portfolio that I can.
And within the whole stack, which is your favorite product?
Well, I think the Lumira stuff is just super cool. I mean, no one knows about it. People think it's like a quirky little desktop tool, which obviously does reside on the desktop. But I just yesterday I saw a great YouTube video. One of our guys used 3D rendering and brought in all this data and actually showed a building. And they could strip down and see temperature by floor and where there were leaks in the air ducts and water pipe condition and just all this amazing data. That when you think about what Lumira is really for in the data visualization, it isn't just like bubble charts and those sort of things. It is all these different ways that you want to look at the data. And the great thing is you don't necessarily have to understand all the data sets and everything else, right? You can bring it in, you can construct it, and so I think that's really cool. And KXEN, which is the acquisition we made in the beginning of October. I've been out doing a roadshow with Shaker Iyer, who's the global VP for predictive BI and visualization. And we were in Japan together for 3 or 4 days. We hit 8 customers, 5 or 6 partners, and I couldn't believe the response. I mean, I thought it was a cool product, but these people already have SAS and SPSS, and they were literally asking us. 3 customers asked us if they could procure the product in Q4, which obviously being in sales was an exciting thing for me. But it's amazing, and now that KXEN is going to come into the Lumira portfolio the same way that Predictive is, and really be a great visualization, leverage Lumira for that visualization, I think that's really the double whammy. And the great thing is they're business-focused tools, right? I mean, to me, I guess that's where I get really passionate is a lot of the way BI used to be purchased and deployed was all driven by IT, and we've seen the shift to being business-driven. Not only do they own the budgets, but they understand the pain and the problems they're trying to solve for. So that combination of KXEN and Lumira, I think, is the business. The way KXEN works is you just drag in a data set, and it actually builds the model for you in KXEN, and then you can do all your projections and your predictions, and you can visualize the impact of that in Lumira. So I think that's great, and be able to do that as a business person. Maybe I'm not capable of doing that, but certainly a business analyst is. I think that will help, expedite the time to value, right? And for the business so they seriously see the return on investment quickly. So I guess it's those 2 right now, Clint, that I think are really cool. But there's just so much more stuff coming, right? I mean, certainly the availability to see all of this on a mobile device is just, to me, is great. I mean, when I'm out with an AE, and it's probably their worst nightmare, but the fact that I can pull up a forecast and see what have they sold this year and how are they doing the plan and ask them questions about deals in the pipeline just makes all of it so much more relevant.
Yeah. So that leads well into the next question is where do you think BI is going? You kind of answered it with the answer to the product thing. But anything else you want to add in terms of where you see it all ending up?
Well, I think where BI as a space needs to evolve to is truly a focus on applications, on analytical applications. And, so I think it's simple things like, if you have a smartphone, almost everybody does, we have a purpose-built application that does one thing and only does one thing. And I think that's where we need to get these applications. So there needs to be, one for what's the pipeline, or, what's the leads, or what are the customer escalations, but that's it. So I no longer have to necessarily have, all these drop downs and everything else. It just is, Kurt wants to know what his pipeline is. He goes here, and there's 2 or 3 buttons, and that way I can't hurt myself. But I can instantly go in and see that information, take action, and move on. And I have lots of examples. I mean, I think when we all go through an airport and we see those dashboards saying your flight number, the destination, and the gate. To me, that's an analytical application. When I walk in the airport, they know that's what I'm trying to solve for, so I can quickly see it and make the decisions. That's where we need to get with BI. And I think the mobile device is the easiest way to do that, because not only is that's where the form factor people want to take action on this, but I think it forces us to rethink kind of the UI and the simplicity of the experience. And I think the other thing is, and I don't know how quickly SAP is going to get there from the apps. And we talk a lot about embedded applications and embedding analytics in line of business functionality and those sort of things. But we really need to take it to the next level. So, Gartner says right now less than 10% of people have access to the information they need to make decisions. And that's going to go to about 70%, they say, by 2018. Right? So that's a really big swing in the next 5 years. And so not all those people are going to have the patience or the willingness to get educated on a tool and understand what all these things mean. So we even have to make it even simpler. And so, I define business intelligence users into what I call active and passive users, or consumers of information. Right now, BI still focus on the active. Like, they're consciously competent. They're investing the time to understand what do these fields mean and where does the data come from and those sort of things. But ultimately, we need to get to, these people are just passive. Like, they go and they check their commission statements once a month, and they don't want to know anything. So the computer's got to tell them what's the right currency, what's the right time of day, where are they based, and all those things that we expect on a mobile device. So a lot of that is going to be the Internet of Things and big data and the convolution of all of that. But at the end of the day, we have to make these things simple and easily digestible, and I think that's where BI is headed. And I think if you look at the SAP portfolio, that's exactly where we're trying to take it. And just one last point on that, Clint. I mean, we get a lot of flack for having lots of different interfaces in the BIs in our business objects portfolio, right? I mean, it's
not from us, though, huh?
No. But it's a frequent discussion. IT would like to have one big hammer and everything's a nail. But I think if you really believe in this passive and active consumers information, you need purpose-built tools for that, right? So for me, I use Explorer for lots of different things. Even though I have a pipeline report that's in dashboards, I still want to go through and do pearl diving and random analysis, and Explorer is a perfect tool for me to do that. And if I had to pick one tool, unfortunately, then I'd probably go down to something like an Explorer, and it may take me much more time to get that aggregate view. So I think you need the multiple solutions. And I think that's really where the value of the suite is that it's essentially one back end, right? One universe that supports all these different UIs. The challenge is, the way Business Objects came to be in its acquisitions and the way that it used to sell its products is people have these horrible mixed landscapes and multiple implementations, and we got to find a way to really clean that up and get everybody using Suite, especially BI Suite 4.1, which is so much better than its previous versions, that we got to get everybody to that level so that they can take value of the suite and all the different interfaces.
And it's Q4, so a good time to speak to SAP about Suite 4.1.
Yeah, it's always a good time. But yeah, Q4 is a good time too.
But I mean, just about the whole app-centric, your observation. I went to TechEd in Vegas, and I know it's very much an ERP show, not an analytics show. But I left there just questioning where classic BI is in the vision of SAP. I think it's always going to be there because of legacy and because of all the disparate sources. But everything seemed to be going, app-centric for small solutions. The data geek behind me that thinks, oh, that's still going to create disparate data sets that we're still going to have to bring together if you want the holistic view. But I agree with the way that's the way the world's going, because people just want simple answers to what they assume to be simple questions.
Well, and I think, Clint, the other obstacle that we haven't addressed is data, right? Who owns the data and the data quality, the data management, the data movement. To me, that is like the elephant in the room that is growing bigger every day. And the business just presumes that the data is right? Because, it comes out of some enterprise system in theory, and so it should be right. It should be the view that I want. And IT presumes that when business is going to buy some solution, that they're actually going to care about the data quality. And that's why I think they all want to control it, and they're saying, okay, we're just going to put BI or analytics in this particular portion, rather than trying to do the enterprise deployments, because it's a unmanageable mess. But I think there's a great quote by Josh Fletcher, one of your pals and a mentor, which basically said, if you have bad data, HANA just makes you stupid faster, right? And I think that is the truth, right? Is we have to slow down, and we got to focus on, whether you need a chief data officer or just a data steward or a data council, you need a group of people that are going to oversee that information. Otherwise, you are going to start making bad decisions.
I mean, I think, I'm very, 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 very outspoken about this topic, and if the other DS layer crew were on here, their heads would drop, because they go like, oh, geez, Clint's going to get on his soapbox again.
Yeah.
But it is fundamental, and it's something that I every time I bring up, I just see my colleagues glaze over. But I still believe it's a core issue, and as you said, in memory, you're going to make bad decisions faster. So
yeah, absolutely. So Clint, let me ask you a question. So, I mean, it's such a big challenge, and it is kind of the elephant in the room. How do you think you get it funded, or you bring people's attention to it, or you put a price on it so people understand the value of having accurate data?
So that's the thing, is putting a price on it and trying to understand. It's either the shock factor of this bad data could expose us in public eye. I don't know if one great example I had was before iOS was big and everybody used to sell mobile games, and the Java games people used to download, and it was a huge business, ringtones, logos, and games, and I was doing a business objects pilot for a customer, and they'd incorrectly configured adult content in the kids section. Mm-hmm. So if kids were browsing a website in those days, they could get a hold of sort of games and videos that they probably shouldn't see for about 10 or 15 years. And all of a sudden, I was busy doing a business objects presentation back in 6.5 or whatever it was, but the room emptied, and that was the shock factor of this could cost us credibility. The converse from a financial point of view, if people want to misreport, numbers, there's what if we get these numbers wrong? What happens if we got the plus or the minus wrong in Excel, and people legally have to declare financial results? Shareholders. There's many good examples. So I would either go. I personally go for the fear factor, that this is what it could cost your organization, or this is what it does cost your organization, or this is how it could tarnish your reputation. But people generally nod. But I still haven't found the secret sauce to get the funding. But it's imperative.
Absolutely. So Clint, I got a follow-up question then. So then, who do you think in an organization should be responsible for data?
Business, without a doubt. I think analytics and BI should sit within the business, within the office of the CFO. If you want to lead these data quality sort of situations, it has to come. Humans create data. Systems are there, but we input the data, and generally those people fall under business. And if they garbage in, garbage out, it's the old story. So if the funding comes from business, and I think SAP did that, where if the data in the system is wrong and they're making decisions on it, then it mustn't be wrong, because that's the gospel. If it's sitting in IT, it's just these pesky nerds that are bothering us about they store our information. I think IT or the CIO should be infrastructure, make sure that technology, the architecture is right, but the information in there has always belonged to us as BI people, but it should never do, because yes, we should understand what it means, but we don't understand the true business value, because we're very zeros and ones, whereas the business folks understand what they want to do with the data. We will run out of time if I carry on about this, but
I have one last question for you, and I'm sorry for turning the time, but so what's your favorite solution then from our EIM portfolio to help solve this problem?
Well, in terms of the information governance.
Yeah. So I mean, you think it's like information steward? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, the whole suite's great. I mean, data services is great. I mean, even if you look, information steward's great as well. if you're looking at what they've just done in SB7, all the data quality rules are now in HANA embedded. So if you want to take it to a more real-time approach, and as you load data, you can do data quality transformations on the load into your database. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
if you talk about collapsing the layers and taking out ETL and all that stuff. So I mean, it's whether it's SAP or whether it's the other competitor products, it's all great. It's just about getting the methodology right and just really being pedantic about good quality of information.
Yep.
So someone I know who ran one of my mentors here who runs a data governance practice. He said if companies start seeing data as an asset on their balance sheet, then they change away. Because he said it's the only thing that your company has from an asset point of view that doesn't depreciate, if it's correct. Just another way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. Oh no, one more question on the geeky stuff. If someone comes to you for advice and they're looking for help, where would you point them? What's your source of? I know you probably have to say SCN because of SAP, but where's your source of information, and how do you reach out to people, and what advice would you give people who wanted to sort of come into the analytics space?
Wow, so those are that's a lot of good questions. No, I mean I think SCN is really good if you want product-specific information about SAP. I mean, I do get a lot of questions on should I deploy this or deploy that, or how do you migrate, or has someone done this before? I think SCN is really important. And one of the goals that I had for this year is I wanted to get 500,000 people from the region on SCN, from APJ on SCN, because I think it just helps with the skills gap. But I guess there's a couple places I go. I mean, Timo Elliott does a great job of blogging and sharing resources and insights, which I think is great. It's a little bit sometimes too business object centric, though he does a great job of calling us out when we need to be called out as well, which is good. It keeps us honest. But I think for me a great source. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and I find there's a number of groups that just do some tremendous posting and some great articles. It kind of depends on where you want to go. I mean, a lot of the stuff that comes out of McKinsey is really good, and interesting on approach and value and what you're trying to solve for. But I think there's a new the SAP Open where we put all the business objects training for free is another great source. So it depends. For me, most of the people that come to me are on the business side. The customers that I talk to, they're trying to figure out how do they get started and what does it look like, and that's why I really like LinkedIn, because you can find good stories of the business actually trying to solve problems. But we have all sorts of great blogs as well, right? We have the Business Innovations blog that SAP puts out that it is great because it talks about, from a business perspective, all of our solutions. In fact, it's not until you get to the end that you actually find out what SAP product it is, but it does a good job of saying here's the customer's challenge and here's how they solve for it and here's what the return on investment was. And so for me, it's multiple sources. As I suspect it is for you, right? Unfortunately, the internet has created so much information and wealth. But LinkedIn for me has really become a great aggregator for SAP and non-SAP content.
What is the biggest thing that you've screwed up in the workplace that you're allowed to legally talk about and the statute of limitations is run up?
Oh boy, yeah, I got to think about this.
It's now 2013, so we're going back to what's the statute? 5 years in the States?
Yeah, no. So for me, I'd go back to my Pilot days. Back at Pilot, we were transforming the company. So Pilot was a longtime BI company, and basically I raised a bunch of money and we purchased it from another company, ran it as a standalone entity. And so we needed to really reinvent ourselves and move from the BI space to another space. And that space we chose was something called operational performance management. And so we got the leadership team in a room and we started eating our own dog food, and a lot of it was around strategy management. So what are your strategic objectives and your key performance indicators? And I remember being locked in this room, and people still quote me on this. We were writing strategic objectives, and people were being very, very, very pedantic on what's the words and the phrase and this whole sort of thing. And we must have been in the room for about 12 hours. And finally, I just got really frustrated. I said, they're only words. Like, I already know what I have to go do. Can we stop talking about it? And the whole team just kind of stopped and looked at me. And one of my pals there, a guy named Jonathan Becker, who's at SAP, was like, if you think they're only words, then you're not bought into this. And I'm like, well, the difference between these couple small words, I don't know that's really going to change the way that we communicate or the way that we act. And the reason why that was kind of a big screw up for me is, we were positioning strategy as a differentiator, and I believe it is. But what I didn't understand is the importance of communication, right? So in my early days, and I still struggle with it now, communication is not one of my strongest skills. I'm very much an execution-focused individual, and not so much an align and get people really, really focused. And so that was kind of a transformational moment for me, was realizing as I looked around the table and all my peers really thought this was so important. And, being a sales guy, we do have a tendency to be kind of very short-term focused, typically quarterly driven. And, so that, for me, that was kind of a real turning point in how I looked at things. And now I certainly do try to have, one eye on strategy and one eye on execution. But that was important. Fortunately, no one really got hurt, except, at every quarter end gathering, when you're at a startup, you always do storytelling, and so that one would always come out, which, when you're trying to rally your peers and you think you're this marvelous leader, and these stories come out about you, it kind of puts you back in your place. But fortunately, that was probably the worst thing that's happened to me. Like I said, it was pretty big. I mean, at the time, I had founded the company and was seen as the leader of the organization, and I think everybody was a little bit disappointed, and that you never like to disappoint people, right? Especially those people that you really, really value their opinions.
Okay, so what do you do for fun when you're not putting stamps on your passport and selling software?
Pretty much anything with my family. We're only in APJ for a finite period of time, right? It's how these assignments work, and so we travel extensively with the kids. So I think it's the trips that I look most forward to with my kids. I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and so going to places like Thailand and riding elephants and caring for them for the day, and to see that experience for my kids. I mean, for me, it's an amazing experience, but to see how your children react, that's probably not big for you because you get to see all the crazy animals. But, in the States, they're only in the zoos, right? So being able to touch them and play with them. But I think it's those sort of things.
What's a zoo?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think, Clint, I mean, those are really the big things. I'm very passionate and committed and genuine about community. So I do try to do a lot with mentoring and coaching anybody that wants it. And I totally believe in the pay forward model and helping people. That's why I'm such a big fan of the mentors, right? So I think those are a lot of the things that I spend my time on. But family is just absolutely critical to what I do. I don't have a lot of time. I'm only in Singapore typically 1 or 2 days a week. Those are weekend days, so any waking moment is spent with the family.
Great. So I'm trying something new. I'm going to use you as a guinea pig. So I've come up with to finish off. I'm just conscious of time. Is 10 quick fire questions. Okay. So I need you to answer these as quickly as possible. Not think about them, and we always have the ability to edit them out in case something comes out wrong here.
Perfect.
Okay. What's your favorite sport, and what's your favorite team to watch?
Favorite sport would be college football, and favorite team would be the USC, the University of Southern California Trojans.
US-based, East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast.
Singapore-based, black pepper or chili crab?
Oh, definitely black pepper.
What are you hoping that
Oh, dude, you just
Santa
broke
puts
up.
under your Christmas tree this year?
What do I hope Santa's going to put under my Christmas tree this year?
I said, what do you hope? Correct.
Okay, all right. Wow, I don't have a quick answer for that. There's nothing I really need or want. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. More time in APJ. How's that? That would be my Santa.
How about a DS Lite sweatband? That'll be good.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
What's your favorite what's your favorite holiday destination?
Favorite holiday destination. The one I haven't been to yet, probably the Maldives.
Cool. Ice cream, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
True or false? I've heard via the grapevine that you have a Batman duvet set.
That's false, but that's what I want under my Christmas tree right there.
What's the weirdest, strangest, most exotic food you've eaten on all your travels around APJ?
That's been put on my plate or that I've eaten. So that I've eaten. Yeah, I don't know that I want to admit some of the stuff that I've eaten. So I ate a bug it's called a hoo-hoo bug, and it's actually like a white gushy larvae of a bug from New Zealand. So I ate one of those called a hoo-hoo bug. Very disgusting. Cooked up in a pan with a little salt. Yeah.
Well done. Sports bar or trendy wine lounge?
Oh, sports bar.
And finally, what is currently on the top of your bucket list?
Top of our bucket list. Probably for me, it is heading off to Siberia. So that's actually one of the things that we're actually going to do. So we leave after Christmas for like 10 days to go to northern China all the way up to the Siberian border.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, it's a part of the world that is very difficult to get to, even more difficult to get to from the United States. So, my 2-year tour ends in June, so we're going to go there and get some snow, and it's one of the coldest places outside of the poles on Earth. So, I can't wait. And I'm coming from Singapore and going there. I'm sure it's going to be even more brisk than you can imagine.
For sure. Okay, Kurt, listen, we must need to wrap up, but thanks so much for your time. It's great chatting as always, and thanks from a community aspect. Thanks for everything you do to spread the word in APJ. It helps people like us, give us a platform to, hope people learn and not just laugh at us.
Yeah, hey, Clint, thank you, and thank you for all you guys do with the podcast and everything else. The mentors, DS Layered, you guys do a great job, and so thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com. D-Slayer!